We're here at Geek Retreat for Clubit IT, and today I have Paul with me, and Paul has a game that he'd like to show us. Tell us about your game, Paul.
So, the game I'm talking to you about today is Scrumpy Cider. It is a deck manipulation game. It shares a lot of things in common with deck builders, but it has a few other features as well. It's for 1 to 4 players, and you have a deck of cards, and you're going to be trying to play 3 actions a turn to make cider by getting apples, getting wood, turning the apples into cider, turning the wood into barrels, selling those barrels and selling those barrels when they're full of cider, and trying to be more efficient than your next person in the, who you're against.
Okay, that sounds great. So Paul's just now going to show us how to play his game.
Okay, so I'm going to talk to you briefly about how you play Scrumpy now. On your turn, you'll have a hand of 5 cards. You're going to play 3 actions. One of the things that makes the game different from most deck builders is that the actions can be cards you've got in your hand, but you also have a list of core actions, which are things you yourself are trained in. They are less efficient than your cards, but they are actions you can always perform. So it's worth, sometimes you will play an action by placing a card, sometimes you'll just place a meeple down and that will represent a core action. I'm going to go through a couple of turns to demonstrate some of the workers. It wouldn't be sensible for me to show you all the workers, but this gives you an understanding of how the game would progress. So on my first turn, I've got my hand, I'm going to play the woodcutter. The woodcutter gives me the chance to get some wood, and I'm going to use the wood in a second. How I do that is I look in my hand, or I use the top of the deck to generate 2 wood. I look through my hand, and on my cards I also have the apple picker, but both the woodcutter and the apple picker have trees on them. I only have 1 tree in my orchard, therefore I can't play them both. That makes the apple picker a prime card to use as a wood. I flip it upside down, slide it under my storehouse, and that's 1 wood. I then look in my cards and think, is there any other ones? Well, actually, I think I'm going to use this one as well. This is the manager card. I'm not going to play the manager this turn round, so that's going to slide in, and I'm going to have 2 wood. That means that now I can play the storage assistant. The storage assistant, when I go on here, pays 2 wood or 3 coins, but I've just got 2 wood, so I'm going to pay 2 wood to extend my storehouse. These cards come out and just go into my discard pile over here. I'm going to extend the storehouse by taking a storehouse building. At the moment I can store 3 wood, 3 apples, 2 barrels or 2 cider. But by extending the storehouse, I'm either going to go this way, which changes it to 4 barrels and 4 cider, or upwards to 6 apples and 6 wood. I feel that actually early in the game it's going to be good to put it there. Now you will notice that's got a point on it, and I started at 2 points. I started on 2 points because my storehouse and my apple tree got me a point to start the game. So I'm going to go up 1 point for my extended storehouse. I've still got 1 action to go. Unfortunately, it's the merchant. If I use the merchant, I can pay 2 coins for 3 goods. That can be apples or wood. Now, I've already done some things with apples, and we just saw I got rid of my apple picker. So getting some apples might be a good idea, but I've got no cards left. So I'm going to take 3 cards and slide them all without looking under as apples. Now this presents a problem. I don't know what these cards are. In fact, some of the good cards that I could use might now be under there. More on that in a second. I've finished my action phase. I'm going to move all the meeples off and move on to the discard phase. Now both the storage assistant and merchant have to be discarded, but the woodcutter has this symbol here. This symbol is a repeat, it can stay out, so it's another difference from normal deck builders. I can actually keep a card out. So I'm going to get rid of these cards first to the discard pile. I'm going to make a decision. Now, the positives and the negatives. The positives of keeping a card out is I know I could have a woodcutter next turn, getting me some more wood. But we've already looked at, and I'm actually getting some apples now, and I've moved away from wood for a second, so I'm actually going to get rid of it. The negatives of keeping it out, you see, are I go through my deck slower. And you may have noticed there's some upgraded cards. These are shared, but there's a shared pool for everyone to use, and I'm going to want to upgrade some of my workers to better workers. If I have cards stuck in here, I'm going to get through my deck slower, meaning less access to these better quality cards. So for the moment, I'm going to discard that there. I'm going to draw myself 5 new cards. This is the draw phase, and the turn would then pass to my left to the next person. While the next people are playing their turn, I can be planning my move. Obviously, reacting to what's gone on, but I can start to think about what I'm going to do. Now, I look at my new cards, and I have in this deck a cider cellar. But I have no cider at the moment, so that's a pretty useless card. I do have a presser. pressers are quite useful because it can turn 3 apples into 1 bottle of cider. And I do have 3 apples, so that's quite useful. However, I also was a bit short of money because I got rid of some money. So I'm going to start off with the investor to gain 2 coins. And another cool card, the apprentice, who can copy any card that you've already played. Now obviously, you could never lead with the apprentice, but what you can do is use it to copy the investor. By copying him, I'm going to get 2 more coins. And then I've got this card called the Idle Layabout, with a lovely fetching picture of yours truly. Now, he cannot be played as an action, which is quite frustrating. But what he can do is serve as very good resources if we needed them. Now what I'm going to do, although the presser is quite good at turning 3 apples into cider, you can actually do it twice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a core action here to get 1 more apple. I'm going to use that Idle Layabout, slide him in as a 4th apple. So I've now got 4 apples in there, and that means I have the discard phase. These come off. The investor has to go, and because the apprentice was copying the investor, he has to go as well. That comes up. I have 2 cards in my hand. Now, one thing we haven't talked about so far is that I can keep these as well. The cider cellar, however, I have no need for it. Now I have to decide how desperately I want this presser, because the presser itself, to keep him out, is going to cost me 2 cards. Cards do not like staying in your hand and not being used and then being asked to come into work the next day. So that's going to cost me 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's have a look. That's my 5. You'll notice I've only got 4 cards, but that would be 5. I would then pass clockwise to the left again. It comes back round to me. Okay, so we'll do one more round here, and we'll see if we can get some cider. Now, that presser we kept, that would be a good idea. Now, one of the good things is we've got a planter. The planter allows me to not only spend 3 to plant an extra tree, which will get me a point, and solve that problem from earlier of not being able to have enough trees to do multiple actions, but also it allows me to get an apple. So I'll use my Idle Layabout as another apple. Okay, now finally, I can then use this to get 1 more apple. There's my 6 apples. So I can use my presser to press 3 apples into a cider. And then once more, they go in the discard pile, look at 3 more apples, and go into a cider once again. So I'm going to put that one in. I've now got 2 ciders. And the game will continue on like that. So before we get started, we're just going to do the variable setup. We've chosen 6 randomised cards. Now this forms the starter set. There is actually 7 different menus in the rules for different selections of cards that are deemed to work quite well together. This is the starter. It's called Bread and Olives, and these are all the starter cards, the most basic cards you would get in the game. We've also got ones that do different functions. So the New York setup is all about getting apples. The Pinocchio setup is all about getting lots of wood. And finally, the Yachtsman setup is all about sails. And basically, so we've set this up randomly. What we then do is the remainder of all the improved workers get shuffled. And as we established that I'm first player because I was the ugliest, we're going to give you 3, and you get to choose one. Now, obviously, not having played many times, you're going to choose one of those cards to start in your discard pile. This means we all start with a slightly different deck. We've all got the same deck, but then this just varies the setup slightly. So if you want to choose one for our first game, it's not that important, but it just goes straight face up in your discard pile, and that would be Improved Apprentice. And I have got an Improved Trainer, so I'm going to improve my trainer. Now that doesn't come with any points, so I'm going to have to make sure I use the improved trainer wisely during the course of the game. That returns there, and we're ready to start. So, the next thing we normally have to do is we all have to shout, "Are you ready?" No, we don't have to do that at all. Okay, so what we have to do is deal ourselves 5 cards. You can be doing the same because you can be planning out your move, and I'll do my first move. Now, early on in the game, I always want to get myself resources. It's always the way I go, so I'm actually going to go Woodcutter. Because I played the Woodcutter, again, I can't play 2 apple trees, so I'm going to use the Apple Picker and the Forager as my wood. No, I'm not. I'm going to use the Woodcutter, the Apple Picker and the Cooper. More on that in a second as my wood. I'm going to use the Storage Assistant to spend the exact wood I just made to make my storehouse bigger. I'm going to do it that way, so I've got more actors, and that does score me a point. So woohoo, I'm winning. So we can end the game there if you want. It's entirely up to you. And then forager, we go on there. I get 1 wood and 1 apple. And because I have no cards, I have to do those from here. So they're going to slide under as 1 wood and 1 apple. And the good thing about having an expanded warehouse, I can do the apples down the bottom, the wood at the top, so it doesn't clash with each other. These all come off. Storage assistant and forager has to go. I can keep the wood cutter, but I've already seen, because you can always look through your discard pile, I've already seen the Cooper's gone, and that would be the main reason for wanting to keep wood, get wood ploughing out. So I'm actually going to get rid of it and draw myself 5 new ones. Your turn.
Okay, so I'm going to start out with an investor because cash money is always useful.
Absolutely.
Grab myself a couple of coins. And then I think we will copy your second move because more storage space is always good, but I'm going to do it with coins to extend the warehouse rather than wood.
So in spending 3 coins rather than the 2 wood. So you're going to get an extra storehouse. Now this is interesting. Is he going to go the same way as me, or is he going to go out sideways?
I think I'm going the same way as you.
Same way. So then 1 more point, and suddenly the scores are tied. So I take back my request to end the game. Worth noting at the end of the game, by the way, that 6 coins are worth a point.
Okay.
And any cider you have in your storehouse will score you 1 point for a bottle and 2 points for a barrel. And you can also 5 resources, so that's empty barrels, apples, and wood can score you a point as well.
Okay.
And we'll score any of the points on our improved workers at the end of the game.
Just quickly check the cost for the improved workers is.
There's 4, 8, and 12, depending on what level. Obviously, we're not at 0.6 yet, so we can't do the next level down. All of these decks are tiered.
Yeah.
Improved, head, and master. We only have access to the improved at the start of the game.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, my hand wasn't a great one starting with, so we're going to make a choice for third action and go recruiter and spend my remaining 4 coins. Go for
that's
broke.
one of those classic sentences where you say it wasn't great and then produce an incredibly powerful card. It's like, oh, it's not great. I'm going to have to play the really powerful card. What are you improving?
Well, we've got an improved apprentice already, so I think a woodcutter would
So
probably
you improve your
use.
woodcutter and that goes straight in your discard pile, and then you now need to do your discard phase. So it'll take your meeples off.
Yeah.
Recruiter, storage as an investor, all are cards that have to go. And then you just have to look at your hand. Do you really want any of those cards for a 1 card penalty?
I do not need a presser right now.
Unfortunately, I appear to be playing against someone who knows what they're doing, because I normally try and persuade people when they're playing against me that they really do want to keep cards out.
No, I think I will keep the Cooper.
Oh, yes.
I think
Winning at life. Now I've managed to do what is widely regarded as the worst hand ever. Is I've got both my idle layabouts in this hand.
Nope.
So I'm desperately trying to see a way of playing other cards, and I'm not going to. But fortunately, I do have the manager. The manager allows me to draw 3 more cards, which fixes that problem. And then I can view 2 cards in my storehouse, so I can see exactly what these are. The apprentice and the presser. And it makes sense because I've had those 2 idle layabouts. Let's put those 2 idle layabouts in as my apple and my wood. And that gets me all the nice cards back in my deck. And only for the cost of money. And I can fire or rehire a worker. Now, interestingly, that often depends on what I want to play next. But because I have seen that the improved presser is available, I'm actually going to fire my presser, which is very, very brave. But because I'm now playing my recruiter to spend 4 money and buy the improved presser, I won't want to use the presser twice. So firing the presser at that stage is a thing. That's obliterated my money, so I can't really do much else except maybe use the investor to get me some money back, because as you said, money is king in most games. So those 3 are all getting rid of cards. I don't definitely don't want my cider cellar. Merchant is always good, but I don't really want to spend money. And I'm going to get rid of these because shuffling my deck around seems good at this stage because I've got an improved card to come. So 1, shuffle my cards, and it is now your turn while I draw 4 more cards. Now one thing I'm going to do, because I'm planning my turn, and a lot of people like to do this, is what you can start to do is you can start to sort of prepare your move ahead of time.
And I'm going to actually use the apprentice to copy my apple picker to get me some more apples, I think. That would be a good move. So that's 3 there, and then 1 at the bottom for my expanded storehouse. And that is me done. So, manager and apprentice have to go. The apple picker can stay out, and that would get me 2 more apples to get me up to the full 6. So I'm going to leave my apple picker out and draw. Is it 4 cards?
4, yeah, because you've now got a hand of 5. Okay, so it comes to me, and the good thing about having done it while you were doing your turn is you can go straight into 3, spend 3, get an extra apple, and I will do that to put that apple in there because it produces 1 apple as well. I get a point for doing that. I'm then going to play my merchant and sell those 2 apples for 4 coins total. Am I? No. I'm going to sell 1 of my apples and 1 wood for those 4 coins that I was talking about. And then finally, I'm going to train my cider cellar. I'm going to pay 2 to turn my cider cellar into an improved cider cellar.
Ooh, nice.
That goes in there. These will come off. Those 2 have to go. Now I could leave the planter out. Actually, an interesting note that is no longer. When I change the prototype, that is not going to be a staying out card.
Okay.
It is at the moment, so we could keep it out. But I feel dirty because as the designer, I know that it's going to change, so I'm going to get rid of it anyway. Feel free to do what you like. Your turn.
Okay, let's start with the trainer to pay 2 to upgrade from normal presser to improved presser. Yeah, that goes into this card, doesn't it, when you do that with the trainer? And we're going to go with the Cooper to turn. Into another barrel. And again a prestige. Fuse the Cooper. And I'm going to use a merchant to pay 2 coins to get me apples.
Okay. Now, the actual main game also has an optional rule, set of things which are heritage cards.
Okay.
And what they do is they build a little bit more interaction because every time you play a certain card, I get a benefit, and every time I play a certain card, you get a benefit. So it makes you more caring about what other people do. That's an optional rule once you've learnt the game a bit. But I'm also looking into the possibility of dynamic pricing on the cider.
Yeah.
But so that's very much in pre-testing and development at the moment.
With the merchant, it says it's 2 coin for 3 goods. Can I still pay 2 coin and take less than 3 goods?
You may.
Okay.
Good, but you'd still take 3 goods and then just discard some.
Basically, what I've got is I have 3 cards in my hand.
Yeah,
I
but you
want
can
one
use
of
blind
these
from the top of the deck if you want to.
if I want to. Okay.
But you have to make 3. You have to do what the card says. So
Okay, that's fine. I will do blind from the top of the deck then. I'll pay 2 coins.
don't look at it though.
Oops, sorry.
Make sure you don't see what that is.
Okay.
If it comes from the top of the deck, it's blind.
Okay. To make 3 apples, and then we will use the improved apprentice, copy the improved presser to do
Wow, that is a good play.
apples.
So no, it's not 4 apples. It's 2 apples into a bottle and then 2 apples into a bottle again.
No, it's 4 apples in a barrel.
Absolutely fine then. Ignore me entirely.
A barrel.
And
that
slides
gets me
round.
another barrel of cider.
Wow. Points are coming out of your ears. Right, my turn. Investor for 2 coins, which I'll immediately spend on 2 wood and an apple. There's a wood. There's a wood. And there's an apple. And then the improved Cooper turns those 2 wood into an empty barrel and a point. and they all come off, and they all go, and that is staying there. 1, 2, 3. Your turn.
Okay, so we'll use cider cellar again to shift my other barrel for 6 coins and 3 prestige. What am I so 6 coins.
2.
3.
So this could be the last turn, depending on what you do.
Ooh, I don't think I can, unfortunately. I was hoping I could try and finish it there. Right, so we will play a merchant to iron. Yeah, so we will spend 2 coins to buy some more resources in, which will be a couple of apples. And a barrel. It's in the wood, it's alright. And then I can use a generic action to turn 4 wood into a barrel,
Which gives
one
you a
victory
point. And ends the game. Just as I was about to smash out some points.
I thought that might be the case because you looked like you were getting ready to do stuff. Like, oh, so I can finish it now before.
That's alright. So what we do at the end of the game, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 resources in there. That's a point. Any cider that's still in, so you've got a point as well, I believe. You've got 5 resources.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we take all our cards out. Money, you can buy a point for each 6. Those go in, so that's 2 more for you. I better hope I've got some staff. And 1.
Yeah, you have a lot more improved people than me.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
I have 3.
You would win 21-19.
Good game, sir.
Well played.
That was good. I like that. I said, hi, I'm Andy from Geek Street in Leeds, and I've just been playtesting Scrumpy, which is a deck building game about making cider, which is really good fun. It's quite simple to get to grips with. It's got a lot of replayability because of the worker actions and the way you can improve your deck that way and what layout is. One of the nice mechanics that I haven't really seen before in a deck builder is the core actions, which allows you to means that you can always do the thing you want to do, even if it's not the best way of doing it, because you're never stumped in able to build that barrel, press that cider, which means you're always still in the game trying to move forward, even if it's not the card even the cards mess you over and you get quite what you wanted. I really enjoyed it. Always helps when you win, so yay. But yeah, it's a nice game. I highly recommend people checking it out, and if you're into deck builders, it's well worth a look. Cheers.
Welcome back to Clubit TV. I've had a chance to think about my impressions of Scrumpy. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to play the game. We ran out of time really with filming and people turning up. But from looking at the video and watching the game being played, it is a game that I'm very much interested in. The things like the basic actions that Andy's already mentioned is something I've not seen in the game before. It's good that you can do these things without feeling that you got stuck because the card that you are after has not turned up. So you can still do what you want, even though it's not as good as playing the action from a card. It is still something that it's not going to hinder you from achieving your end goal. I also like the mechanism where you have to bury cards underneath the storehouses. This kind of creates a tension where you're trying to build up resources, but at the same time, those cards could also be the ones that you are looking for to do the things that you want to do, and therefore keeping them under there can sort of hinder you or cause a problem during the game. Now, yes, there are cards that enable you to look at 2 of the cards that are in your storehouse, but sometimes it might not be the cards that you're looking for. So there's that tension that I like having in games where you want to put more resources in your storehouse, but you also want to keep your deck moving. And that's one of the things that I like a lot about this game, is that it is a deck builder, but with some differences. It isn't just a rehash of all the other deck builders that are out there. There are some mechanisms that are unique to this game, or I've never seen before. So Scrumpy is a game that I would definitely like to have a look at, would definitely like to play. So when it is finally published, we'd love to have a copy. We'll do an extensive review of it, and we will let you know what we think. Okay, that's it from Clubit TV. I'm Hubert Hung. I'm signing out.